Hi, my name is Noah Goldstein, and I'm a management consultant. I graduated from Dartmouth in 2018, and I've been in consulting since. I started at a company called Kepler Cannon, and for the last year or so, I've been at Boston Consulting Group, or BCG. I decided to take the GMAT in November of 2021. My first week, I decided to take a dry practice test. I ended up getting a 620, 32 quant, and I believe 36 or 37 verbal, which is obviously very discouraging. I took the GMAT this May 2022, and got a 770. That's with a 49 quant and a 49 verbal. I started my GMAT prep, as I mentioned, back in November of that year. Originally, I started out with just doing the official GMAT prep books, but found that I was missing a lot of the basic quant knowledge that I needed. I had done the math, back in high school, but it's been around it's been around like 8 years, I guess, since I was consistently doing that math. So I decided that I needed, to find a class room type of environment before I took an official GMAT, just to see, learn the basics. My girlfriend, who is now going to business school, had found Target Test Prep around a year ago. She had managed to get a 750 after using it for around 4 months, and so I thought that, given her level of success, it would make sense for me to do the same. Obviously, in my industry, I work a lot of hours, and so I was a bit nervous about the ability to consistently attend a class. So Target Test Prep's, self-guided portion, the flexible study plan, was incredibly helpful for me because I could then set my own time frame for when I wanted to complete things by. So I used Target Test Prep for around November to May, so around like 6 months or so. But that was doing pretty light studies, so maybe 7 to 10 hours a week. And then I luckily was able to take some time off of work and spend around 2 weeks just studying in the 2 weeks leading up to my test in May. So Target Test Prep was fantastic for me in a few different ways. First was, as I mentioned earlier, the structured study plan. So it sets very specific milestones and lesson plans so that I know that I'm making progress without having to, retake a practice test or do a bunch of practice problems. Similarly, and while it teaches you the concepts, it also gives you practice questions and quizzes to let you test your knowledge on those specific subjects. So, for example, what I would do is I would finish around 5 different lessons, then I would take all the quizzes associated with those lessons in order to, reinforce those learnings. And through that, I was able to make steady progress without having to devise my own study plan, decide what material I need to use. It was all sort of just aggregated into Target Test Prep, which was very, a huge burden off my back. So I mentioned earlier that I went from a 32 quant to a 49 quant through Target Test Prep. And I, completely was because of Target Test Prep, both in terms of reteaching me all the math that I had forgotten, and in terms of showing me how those types of questions can show up actually on the GMAT. So, for example, I finished Target Test Prep. My first test back, I got around a 42 on quant. And then every test after that, so I took there's 6 practice tests offered official GMAT. I took each of those, 1.5 times. So I took around 9 practice tests. On one of those, I got a 42, and the rest of them, I got 49s and 50s every single time I took it on quant. I did a little less of the verbal prep on Target Test Prep just because I have a background in the liberal arts. So I felt pretty confident in my ability to figure out the logic portions. It just took a little bit of studying. So I think in total, I put in around 150 hours or so on Target Test Prep, and it made me very confident in my ability to complete the quant portion of the test. So that was how Target Test Prep sort of factored into my own preparation. As far as personal advice goes, I would say that the biggest thing about the GMAT is give it its due time. I think a lot of people go into the GMAT thinking, I'll cram it in because I need to apply to business school in this upcoming time frame. But I think that that's kind of shooting yourself in the foot. I think it's, the test isn't rocket science. Like it's definitely solvable. You just have to give it its due credit. So taking the time and properly going through, a course, for example, on your weaker section, I think will go a long way towards helping you. And the second thing is, I would say there's nothing quite like the official GMAT practice test. I took a bunch of different practice tests through different platforms, and none of them sort of came close to the official GMAT practice tests. So I guess to sum it all up, I would say target test prep is fantastic in increasing your baseline level of knowledge in quant, and also sort of introducing you to how quant is approached on the GMAT. And I was able to go from a 32 to a 49, a consistent 49 at that, all thanks to target test prep. Thank you.